Hey, Symphonic Choir members, it's Mr. Axler here. I'm here to tell you a story. What a surprise. Mr. Axler telling us a story. This is a wonderful story that will tie into one of the new pieces that we're doing this year for the spring. So, I went to Westchester University. I graduated in 1993, so yes, I'm an old man. But when I started in college in 1989 as a freshman, I was really cocky and I was very, into myself, and I thought I was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I met a woman by the name of Lois Williams. Lois Williams was one of the choir directors and voice teachers at Westchester University, and had been there for a long time. She was one of the staples or the pillars of Westchester University. And she became my voice teacher. And I auditioned for the very top group at Westchester called Concert Choir. Concert Choir was a select group of about 40 singers. And Westchester is a very, very large program. So 40 singers is very small compared to many of the other choirs that were there. As a freshman, I got into concert choir, and that was an amazing feat for me. And Lois Williams was the director for concert choir. I learned a lot about sight singing, a lot about learning repertoire, but more than anything, she taught me how to be musical. I learned so much about words and understanding text and how to get the best out of the text. I learned a lot about musical line, melodic line, carrying through phrases. I learned a lot about breath control and support to allow that sound to continue through. And at one point early on in my college career, I was in a voice lesson with her, still doing my typical bit of a cocky attitude because I had gotten into concert choir as a freshman. And I thought, again, I was really awesome, all right? But I didn't do a whole lot of work early on. I just basically rested on what I thought was my God-given talent, and that would get me through. And at one point in one of our voice lessons, God bless her, Lois said to me, Corey, you're going to fail. And she had this Minnesota West central part of the country kind of accent. And I said, Miss Williams, I'm sorry, what did you say? You're going to fail. And I said, what do you mean I'm going to fail? She's like, you're not applying yourself at all. And she basically, she laid it all out there for me. And she basically made me feel like crap. And she said, you have two choices. You can either listen to what your teachers, especially me, are telling you what to do and learn from it and grow, or do what you're currently doing and eventually fail out of the program. It's your choice entirely. And then she dropped it. And then I went back to my dorm room after that lesson and started having a long, hard thought about what she said to me, and I realized that she was right, and that I can't just rest on my laurels and my talent, and I have to apply myself. It was a pivotal point in my career, in my lifetime for that matter. It basically changed my entire attitude of how I do things. And from that point forward, I became a completely different person. I was a very, very strong student from that point forward, as far as getting my work done and staying focused and wanting to better myself. And I became so I respected her so much from that point forward, and I listened to everything she said, and I became practically what you would call a zealot, or someone who was like an obsessed fan, someone who would like hang on to every one of her words. She became the most influential teacher in all of my life from that point forward. And to this day, I attribute much of my knowledge and education my approach to conducting and teaching music, all from her. So a very, very strong person in my life, Lois Williams. One of the most important pieces that we did was a piece called Flower of Beauty, which you are about to start in symphonic choir. It's a relatively simple piece, musically not that difficult. And I remember looking at it going, well, this is going to be easy. But what she did with it and how she worked the words and made you hang on to every tiny little moment in the piece, that was what really moved me. And she would take phrases. For example, here's a tenor part in the piece. So the part goes, and I'll sing it the way it's written. She is my slender small love, my flower of beauty fair. All right, so that's pretty, right? But she made us understand the words, and she would conduct it in such a way that we would understand more than what was happening and allow the audience to understand more. So it became this. She is my slender small love, my flower of beauty fair. Now you may say, well, you're just giving emphasis to words now, Mr. Axer, and you made it a little bit slower. That may be what you're hearing, but so much more is going on in my mind when I'm singing it. I'm connecting to the words, and I'm making sure that what I'm singing is being not only understood by an audience, but that audience member is connecting with me and connecting with the music. That's a much higher level of thinking than just, I want to make sure we can hear the words and hear the music. It's all about finding the connection with the words. Ultimately, in my junior year, Lois ended up retiring, which was very, very sad for me. It was heartbreaking because this was the woman that I had looked up to my entire career in college up to that point. And on the last concert that we performed, we did a tour in January. On the last date of that tour, concert choir sang as the final piece, Flower of Beauty. And so the recording that I posted on in the Google Drive link in the Canvas is of that performance, 1992, January of 1992. So almost 20 years ago at this point. No, almost 30 years ago. My goodness. Wow, almost 30 years ago. 29 years ago. It made such an impact on me. That performance was so, you'll hear it. It was so moving. We cried after that performance. We all did. We all cried. It was a very emotional moment for all of us. So moving forward, though, here's the end of this story. She retires. Someone else comes in. Not as important to me, but still a very good director. But I just didn't make the connection. I become a teacher. I keep in touch with her, and then years later, we find out that she's not doing well. She's in an old age home. She's about 90 years old. I go to visit her, and it was a very, very sad day for me because here is my idol that I looked up to for such a long time, who was in a very bad state. And she knew me right away, recognized me right away, but she was struggling. She had had a stroke. And we sat, we talked, cried. I've never cried so hard in my life after seeing her. I went back to my car and I just sobbed uncontrollably because it was hard for me to see someone who I had looked up to for so long get old and drastically change. But it was still her. So she passes away, sadly. And shortly after that, we set up a memorial service for her at Westchester, which I put together. And we got members of the concert choir from years and years and years, all came together, and we had this beautiful service in honor of her at Westchester University. And one of her dear friends came to me afterwards, and she handed me a present. She said, "I think you should have this." And I said, "What is it?" And she said, "Open it up." So I opened up the wrapper, and it's this. The words to Flower of Beauty. And this was given to her at some point in her career, and she hung it on her wall in her studio. And I remember it very, very vividly, hanging behind her piano in the vocal studio. She said, "I think of all people, you should have this." So I have this, and it's taken me up until now to be able to do this piece, because more than ever, we need to find love and beauty in our lives and not be bogged down with anxiety, pain, grief, and such. So I think the time is right for us to do this piece. I tell you the story not because it's sad, but I'm hoping because it's inspirational for you. I want you to understand that there are people in your lives that I'm hoping you will be touched as much as I was touched and moved and inspired by Lois Williams. And a piece like this you will connect with, because the words are just love and beauty, and it is just a gorgeous piece. So your task now is to learn this piece, start listening to the practice files, start singing along to it, and then as we progress, I'm hoping that we can make the same amount of music and joy and expression as I did so many years ago singing with her at Westchester. Good luck, guys, and take care.